Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. Today I'm here to share with you some of my favorite summer thrillers. I read primarily two genres really. I read a lot of romance and I read thrillers, and I read a lot of them in the summertime. I mean any time of the year, but those are like I love thrillers in summer. Maybe it's because I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat, so I feel like I can read a little bit more of them. I don't know. But either way, I have some thrillers that are perfect to read in summer. Now, what does that mean? It means that all of these thrillers I'm talking about are set in a summery setting, whether they be at a camp, out at sea, on a beach, but they have that thrilling aspect, aka they're summer thrillers. That's just the way I'm going to do it, so I hope that's okay. Let's get into them. The first one I want to talk about is The Night Swim by Megan Golden. I love this read. So this one also combines podcasts. So if you're a big sucker like myself that have books that have podcast and thrilling aspects in them, you need to read this book. So this book follows a character named Rachel who she is the host of a podcast, a thrilling podcast, and she travels to the small town because this town's golden boy has been accused of and she decides to go ahead and document and do the live podcast on the actual trial. While she's at this very small beach town, she gets notes on her windshield, a woman that says her sister was killed years ago. They ruled it as a drowning, but she knows that her sister was murdered, and she wants Rachel to look into it. So Rachel feels compelled, and she goes into Jenny Sill's death, what happened all these years ago. So we have two timelines of what's going on now with her podcast, so also really dissecting Jenny Sill, which is, I will say, the more interesting case. But either way, this is fast-paced, it's set in a beachy town, and it is a great summer thriller that you definitely need to read. Up, The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager, one of my favorite thriller authors. I love his books, and this one for sure is his most summer vibes. By that I mean it's set at a camp. When does camp happen? Usually in the summer. So this one is set at a camp called Nightingale, and it follows a character named Emma, who she goes to Camp Nightingale. She's kind of paired with like the cool girls in the cool cabin, and she goes to them. And basically what happened when Emma went there, her other cabin mates got killed and no one's been ever really to solve it. And Camp Nightingale swiftly got shut down. Now, 15 years later, Emma is in New York. She's in the art scene. And what do you know? They're going to open Camp Nightingale up again. And they really want Emma to come to see, like, things have changed. And so she decides to go to investigate what really happened to all of her cabin mates 15 years ago. What secrets were they hiding? Where were they going? And who killed them. It's a really great one. It's not one of my favorite ones, but the setting alone, Riley Sager does really well with settings, so I would highly recommend checking it out. Speaking of settings, I bet you thought you would never see this author on one of my recommended reads videos. The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. I know. I have told you guys that my relationship with Ruth Ware is rocky at best. I don't read her books anymore. I have, I've kind of given them up, which is okay. It's okay. But I will say my favorite of hers will always be The Woman in Cabin 10, because what Ruth Ware does right is settings. Her settings and her books are phenomenal. That will take you there. I can tell you a book that she wrote that was very wintry, and I can also tell you one that's very summery. This is all about a character named Lo, who is a journalist, and she gets the chance to write up this cruise, and it's a very small cruise. And so she goes there, and one night she hears this woman screaming, and she's pretty sure she's seen somebody been thrown over deck. And so nobody believes her, so she goes to investigate it. And it's a really interesting kind of Agatha Christie whodunit. Like, Ruth Ware likes to kind of do like the Agatha Christie thing. Whether or not she does well, I don't know. But either way, The Woman in Cabin 10 was definitely my favorite. I think because I don't like being closed off from things, and cruise ships are that. But it was really interesting and it was fun, and will still remain my favorite Ruth Ware novel. Speaking of cruise ships, man, oh man, I read the last one by Will Dean, and amazing. Like, I loved it so much. This book comes out next month, so technically this might be a little bit cheating, but I want you to put it on your radar. It is the perfect summer thriller because, again, it takes place on a cruise ship. We follow Kaz, and Kaz is going on this great cruise, this like week-long cruise with her boyfriend. And so they have a great first day together. Things going great. And then she wakes up the next day, and what do you know? Nobody else is on the cruise ship. All the luggage has vanished. She's like, where the heck? Where's everyone gone? Where's everything? Like, she's alone on this cruise ship. And that is all I could tell you about it. This book is much more than it seems. The author does a really good job with completely like hooking you in. Let me tell you, I stayed up late to finish this book because I had to know what was going on. It was thrilling, it was scary, it had me guessing. The ending, I loved it. Definitely amazing. Like, I would highly recommend it if you like books like of a big mystery, but also a lot of different plot twists. I wish I could tell you more, but I can't because it would ruin the whole book. I feel like if I told you what direction the book goes in, it would be spoiling it for you. But rest assured, if you want a great summer thriller, please check out The Last One by Will Dean. It's coming out next month. You need to read it. So freaking good. So thrilling. We have The Southern's Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. Grady Hendrix is also an author that writes in one particular setting. He usually always has his books in South Carolina, and this one is that too. This takes place in Charleston, South Carolina. I want to say it's in the 90s. Yeah, the early 90s. And it's basically all about these women that are in this book club, and they kind of read mystery thrillers, and then they have this new guy move into their neighborhood and they try to research him more. Does it have vampires kind of in it? Yes. It's like set in the middle of summer. It's what you need to know about Grady Hendrix is he's a horror author, but he writes a lot of satire with his horror, which is why I think I can read it because otherwise, like, I just can't. But this one's also, you know, satire-y, funny, but also has a lot of gross things in it. I'm not gonna lie to you. He does really descriptive imagery, not of killing, but of other things. And it's like, whoa. But either way, I do really enjoy the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. It's not one of my favorites by him, but I still would recommend it for a summer thriller. Because if you don't know, in the South here in the summer, it gets freaking hot. I don't live in South Carolina, but I live 2 states up in Virginia, and it's blazing. Like, I think today is a whopping 95, but the humidity and the heat index makes it feel like 105. Fun. Then we have Into the Drowning Deep by Myra Grant. This is a sci-fi horror one that's just perfect to read in summer. So this is, please forgive me, I couldn't get the library copy, so I'm very rusty on the details because it's been so long since I've read it. Basically, this is about if mermaids are real, like if sirens are real. And so a long time ago, this like documentary crew went out to go see if mermaids are real, and what do you know, they never came back. Many years later, we followed the sister of the like one of the host of that like documentary that never came back. A biologist, very smart with sonar, water, all that kind of stuff. They get an opportunity. They're going to go see if they can find mermaids and if they can find that ship that was never recovered. And so she's like, I have to go figure out what happened to my sister. And so they have a whole new crew, and they go, and things get freaking scary. If you like kind of mermaids, deadly mermaids, this is a great one to read, hence the perfect time to read it. Summertime, mermaids, you get it. But either way, it is creepy. It does go a lot into the sci-fi jargon with like oceanography is like sonar and things like that. It was still an enjoyable and scary as mess book. Last two I want to recommend aren't necessarily summer thrillers, but I'm recommending them because you can read them quickly. One's a very funny one, Dally for Aunties by Jessie Q. Santano. It's kind of like a cozy mystery where a girl goes on a date and her date ends up dead by the end of the night, not by her doing, but her aunties get involved, and it's kind of like a really unbelievable type of book where like shenanigans keep happening. Like it's almost like Weekend at Bernie's in a way, and you're just like, how? But either way, it's a hilarious fun time. If you want not maybe a scary summer thriller, this is one to check out. And then I have lastly The One by John Marrs. Now don't be fooled by the size of this book, because when I picked it up I was like, crap, this is long. It's like 450 pages. That's a long thriller and a long book in my opinion. But the reason I put this on this list because you will fly through this. Number one, the chapters are short because you're following so many different characters. And number two, you're gonna want to know what happens. So this is about this DNA test that can determine if you have a perfect match or not. And we follow a slew of different characters that get this test done, whether they will leave the relationship they're in currently. We also have maybe a serial killer in the mix that gets a DNA test. And it's just so interesting. This is my favorite John Marrs books by far. It's amazing. It's a long one, but you will fly through it. Like it's one that you're just going to want to devour one day on the beach and just never stop reading until you're finished with it. So there there you have some summer thrillers that are perfect to read in. You guessed it, summer. I would love to know if you've read any of these or are going to read them, if I persuaded you to pick one up. If you're a big fan of reading thrillers in the summer as well, please let me know. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.